Call the meeting to order. I don't have my little mallet here, so let's bow our heads for a word of prayer. Kind Heavenly Father, thank you so much for being here together and discussing the issues of our city. We pray for your guidance in the operation of our citizens. These things we ask in thy name. Amen. Roll call.
Commissioner Baker.
Here.
Commissioner Garver.
Here.
Commissioner White.
Here.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Here.
Mayor Lamb.
Here. You had in your packet the minutes from our April 6th meeting. Any changes in that?
Move to approve.
A second.
We have a motion and a second for the approval of the minutes. Roll call.
Commissioner Baker. Yay. Commissioner Garver.
Yes.
Commissioner White.
Yay.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Yay.
Mayor Lamb.
Yay. Now's the time we have set aside for comments from our citizens. If you're here to speak about the ordinance that is coming up later for a public hearing, I would ask that you reserve your comments until we call for that public hearing. Otherwise, if you have comments you want to share with us, you're welcome to come up, give us your name and your address. And I'm looking for the microphone, which I don't see. Okay.
Don't want to come.
Up here,
Yes.
I don't know where to walk anymore, I'm not sure what, stand or what.
Neither do we.
I just not look for the X down the floor.
We're all in the same boat.
I'm Larry Wallace, I live at 7235 White Oak Valley Circle. And I've been here several times, and first of all, I want to say thank you. The dig on the property up there has ceased. And this ceased several months ago. The gentleman had that, I think, that was doing the dig, that not the person who owns the property, but they did put up a silk fence a couple months ago. And that fence is starting to come down now because so much mud's coming off the mountain there and that. So what I'm here for today is to try to find out where that's at. I know that an engineer was brought in to see how to fix that or what the damage would be over time. So I'm trying to find out what that status was, what's going to be done. I still have a major mud problem coming off on my driveway and that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew.
You're welcome.
Spoke to my press engineer. He has gotten us the site and civil plans, which our city engineer has reviewed them, and they've been to his satisfaction. However, one thing we're lacking is a geotech report, and the engineer, I spoke to him, and he said Mr. Hebe is not necessarily agreeable or wanting to go in that direction. So I've reached out to our codes person who will be working with our city attorney to where we can take to the next step to get the action and results needed.
And that code person is the judge that we take cases in front of, or?
No, Jeremy Greenleaf.
Okay.
He's our codes assistant, yes. So he'll be working with Sam and sending off a letter to the violator.
You're speaking of the administrative
Yeah.
hearing officer, Vice Mayor. That's
Yeah.
not in this purview at this point.
But it could get there.
I don't think so.
That's
That
more
goes there.
for unsafe housing and stuff like this. We just probably go to straight to circuit court or something like that. This thing.
Okay.
So Mr. Hebe, that the gentleman that did the excavating?
Yes,
You said his name.
correct.
So he believes he doesn't owe any fixing of any kind for the property damage he caused?
Well, I'm just going by what the engineer had told me when
Okay.
he had approached Mr. Hebe and explained you need to get a geotech report. He wasn't very interested in doing that and seemed to kind of
Okay.
give a little bit of resistance, in other words. So
Has he been cooperative in any way?
up to this point, yes, yes.
Okay, if I can add something, if you may not know, Andrews, last week, or after the tornado, now, I had a number of trees come down onto my driveway now from that area there. And I spoke to the landowner who was leasing that Mr. Hebe. The landowner had the trees cut off of me and did tell me that Mr. Hebe had stopped paying him and that he had not heard from him, except he was down the street in Grant County digging that now. But, so he has stopped taking payments on the property, so I think that part of that lease deal they had is in the garbage. So my next question then, do you go back to the landowner to allow this to happen? Is that where this thing goes next?
Well, we'll just have to investigate to see. I mean, I need to confer with Andrew and the codes people as far as exactly where we are and what, I mean, we know the general violation, but the specific things that are being violated and how we enforce it.
Well, my question right now, with the mud coming off and the silt fence coming down, I don't know if you've been up there to see where there's been so much it's pulling the fence down now, then who would be liable for that right now? Does that come on the property owner or is this just?
Well, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, that's something that I'd be happy to have Jeremy get in contact with Mr. Heeb and just have him address those concerns. See about cleaning out some of the silt where they're properly functioning as intended.
I'm finished, thank you. I do appreciate y'all getting that big stuff there.
Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll go on with our agenda. Our unfinished business is the second reading and a public hearing for ordinance 1079. So I'll close the commission meeting and open the public hearing. Anyone here to speak for or against ordinance 1079? Would you read the caption for us, please?
An ordinance of the City of Collegedale, Tennessee, to amend the official Collegedale zoning ordinance to amend area requirements for certain zoning districts.
Seeing no one, we will go on with it, close the public hearing and go on with our commission meeting. You heard the caption of this. Do you have any questions about the ordinance for Kelly?
Sounds very vague. Is that by plan? Is everything open to change? It doesn't, I didn't see any certain ordinances. I mean, zoning that was impacted. But according to what she just read, that's what I was just going by.
Right. No, and thank you. Good evening. The ordinance in question does not amend all ordinances. It is specified within the ordinance, the new ordinance itself. I mean, it doesn't address all zones, excuse me, but and that's in part of the ordinance in front of you. What this does is reduce the minimum lot size from 1 acre on septic to 25,000 square feet, which is what it was originally. And the reason for that was concern over failing septic systems.
Right.
However, the state is more rigorous in enforcing that provision from state law down to the local level with Hamilton County groundwater protection. So the idea behind this is that we do have, it's not an efficient use of land if a property will perk with less than 1 acre, but under our zoning, we won't allow that. So that's an inefficient use of land which is a finite resource in the city. So that was the reason behind this. And so it allows the PERC test and that approval to be with the state where it should be. So, and not let zoning get in the way if that property will PERC according to the state.
It just opens up an appeals process, basically. Kind of approves appeal.
It sets a floor at 25,000 square feet versus a minimum. Basically, anything above 25,000 square feet, if it's acceptable by the state and Hamilton County groundwater protection, then it would be acceptable under zoning. So these properties that are otherwise very buildable aren't getting caught by this. And they sit fallow for years. And that was changing back to the ordinance, the standard to the way it was in 2000. That's when this was originally changed to 1 acre, and for good reasons, but conditions have changed at the state level, which protect health, safety, and welfare above and beyond what zoning can and should do.
Any additional questions or comments?
Yeah, well, we're on that subject. So does that allow for other forms of sewage disposal to be put in place on smaller lots as well? There's some pretty technologically systems now that can keep everything out of the ground almost.
If it is approved by the state via Hamilton County Groundwater Protection,
Okay.
then that would be acceptable. So we're really getting out of the business of deciding whether something perks well enough and leaving that to the authorities that know better and leaving zoning to other standards.
Thank you.
Which is very helpful to us, by the way, because that's not our subject matter of expertise.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 1079. Roll call.
Commissioner Baker? Yes. Commissioner Garver?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yay.
Vice Mayor Johnson?
Yay.
Mayor Lamb?
Yay.
Thank you.
That completes our unfinished business. We will go now to new business. We have the first reading of ordinance 1080. Would you read the caption, please?
An ordinance of the City of Collegedale, Tennessee, approving an emergency fee waiver to provide for repairs and construction and declaring a disaster related to the tornado of April 12, 2020, and providing for expedited future disaster relief.
And we did this during the 2011 tornado as well. The city had quite a few homes impacted by damages, and we waived the building fees for that.
I have a question on the date selection that it goes back to. I noticed that it said April 21st, and the tornado hit the 12th. I just didn't know if there was a rhyme or a reason why it went to the 21st and not to the 13th or 14th.
I was just asked to prepare it by Andrew, and I think I just said, when do we start it? And he said, well, why not put it today, the day he asked me? So there's no reason you can't put it back to April 12th.
Have you received
Commissioner.
any permit requests thus far?
We have gotten a couple, yes.
Are you asking Commissioner White that it should start the day of the tornado?
I would just like to backdate to the 13th, just to,
Makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
do we need to amend that in a motion?
Well, there's not been a motion to approve yet, so when if you make the motion to approve, just make it to approve it with the amendment
Okay.
back to the 13th.
I move to approve this with an amendment to move it to April 13th, to be effective April 13th, and not April 21st.
And that's in section 1?
Yes,
Is
that
the
is
length of time?
section 1, yep.
Okay.
And to continue to extend to July 20th.
Okay, and so we'll have to, our waive for let's just strike out in section 1, it says the 90-day period. You see where I'm talking
Yep.
about, Commissioner?
Yep.
So maybe your motion should also be to strike out the phrase 90-day period there.
Okay.
Because we're really going back a little bit more than 90
Right.
days.
So I amend my motion to say, to strike, to be waived for 90-day period starting April 13th,
Yeah.
moving forward to July 20th.
You got that, Christie?
I have it on recording too.
Do we think July 20 will cover all the needs?
Well, you can always extend it if you
Okay.
feel like you do.
Okay.
And note, commissioners, also that we've added a new provision to the city code, also in section 5, that basically said, you're passing an ordinance to do this time. But in the case of future disasters, if there is a declaration of a disaster by the governor or the president of the United States, which is what's happened in this instance, then by resolution, you can relax this and it'll take at least one reading off the board. And that's why I did it the way I did.
Now, does section 3 waive for the fees if someone's already paid?
Yeah, that needs to be changed to April 13 as well.
Yeah.
That's what I wondered.
Yeah, and I think that was meant in your motion. Has anybody paid the fees yet, Andrew?
There might have been just one or two, not a whole lot.
Okay, so he can check and let you know for the second.
For the record, section,
I've noticed at least one that has been in the report that Andrew gave us on fees and permits and things.
okay,
It's my understanding, the intent of the commission, that if you pass this after it takes effect, we can reimburse those that have already paid.
Good.
But you have to pass.
Because I got a roof out of the last tornado. It took me 6 months to get State Farms there to do the evaluation. Another 6 months really to get a roofer to come in. I don't know if 90 days is going to really be enough
That was my
for some of these.
Yeah.
Can we?
Feel free to extend it if you need to.
Can-
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Can we?
You need to be
I mean,
specific
they have to
that
show some
tornado
type
related.
of, yeah, they would have to show some type of tornado related in the estimate or whatever, building permit or,
You want to move it to
Pictures.
6 months?
I feel more comfortable.
December
6 months.
31st?
I think
Yeah,
it
dear.
needs to be long. I'm still waiting on the siding person.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
so,
I will amend my motion
To amend.
to amend to December
Amend.
31st.
Well, why don't you do this, just for the record, withdraw
Withdraw my motion.
your original motion and then move to move to pass the ordinance with the following amendments.
Okay, I withdraw my motion and I move to approve this with the amendment is April 13 in section 1, in section 3. Oh, and strike the 90 days.
In section 1.
In section 1, and with the period ending on December 31st, 2020.
I'll second that.
And then section 3, move it to April 13 as well.
Does that cover
Right.
that they show proof that it was 20?
And then on section 4,
December.
state that it needs to be December 31st, 2020 as well.
Okay.
I'll second that.
I've had a couple of phone calls from people wanting to know about this, so I told them we were working on it. Any other comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve ordinance, the first reading of ordinance 1080. Roll call.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Garver,
Yes.
Commissioner White,
Yay.
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Yay.
Mayor Lamb.
Yay. Our next item is the first reading of ordinance 1081. Would you read that caption, please?
An ordinance of the City of Collegedale, Tennessee, adopting and to effectuate certain provisions of Tennessee Code annotated 38-9-101 to 38-9-106.
Commissioners, as you are well aware, we've had various emergency proclamations across the country, here in Tennessee, and then here within the city relative to the coronavirus crisis. We have adhered to what the governor has required us to do. There was some thought initially that each city had to declare an emergency in order to receive disaster relief funding from TEMA. We have been told since then that it's not the place, no longer the case. And the governor's last orders have basically preempted us from doing anything separate from what he has required us to do unless the health department says differently. And so there's really not a role for us at this time relating to the coronavirus crisis. However, early on, when we were all trying to decide whether we had to do emergency proclamations and what the statutory authority for that was, it struck me that, the question is, did somebody violate an emergency order? What can we do with them? And the code says that if you actually adopt an ordinance like this right here, then you can cite people to court for civil penalties for violating an ordinance or violating an emergency proclamation. In the big picture here, we're across the state, so it doesn't matter. But in the future, just in case there's something where it affects the city alone and nothing else, this gives the administration and the police department a little bit of authority to enforce. And so it's just something that came to my mind as a result of this early decision-making of trying to decide what to do as a result of, do we need a proclamation? Do we not? How do we enforce it? And all that sort of stuff. The government took it out of our hands. The governor took it out of our hands, but next time it may be just within the city. This gives you a tool.
I'll be honest with you, I don't like this.
Okay? And you don't have to.
And I'll tell you, when it talks about rights and actual force and violence and the police authority. And I mean, we're talking about our citizens here. I don't see them doing this for coronavirus or any other thing that's out there, the new killer bees that's coming to town apparently. So I've got some issues with that. I'm for freedom. I'm for people walking on the sidewalks. This talks about people walking there. If you don't have a lawful order, you can't walk on the sidewalks. You can be ticketed. You know, I understand stay at home. I stayed at home for 4 weeks, but there at some point in time, you've got to get out of your house and do things. We've got nice green sidewalks down. And maybe I'm misreading this, but I looked it up because I wasn't familiar with this.
Well, the difference is this. You can say what you can and can't do in your emergency proclamation. This just says if you violate the emergency proclamation, then you can be penalized. So, I mean, you could just say, we urge you to stay off the streets as opposed to we order you to stay off the streets. You see what I'm saying?
Is there anything better than this out there in the law that would, I mean, I just don't know that we need.
This is what you have in the Tennessee code. But again, if you have an order that says we declare an emergency and you can't come to City Hall and somebody tries to storm the gates of City Hall, well, that's one thing. If you have, but if you proclaim an emergency and say we urge people to stay off the streets, urging is not an order to. We're just saying, you know, for your safety, consider this. Where the fine tuning that you're talking about, Vice Mayor, is in the proclamation itself, not in this ordinance. That's my.
Because it's like 5 or 6 different ones, you know, general curfews, restrictive orders.
Right.
Where are you reading that from?
I had to go out to
Yeah, the
Tennessee.
Tennessee code that's
Okay.
required.
I was going to say it
I
wasn't in
just-
this.
You know, it talks about, you know, some things like liquor stores and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Gas stations.
I get all that, but, you know, if you don't have gas stations open, that's pretty hard. People get back and forth to work. Not that we would do it,
Yeah.
but it gives our city manager or the mayor or the like that. And I'm one of these freedom people.
Sure.
I'm for people, if you're going to take a risk, then you take a risk. I know our police department's here, but I think if somebody was trying to storm City Hall, the police would do their jobs. I don't think you have to get to the level of the law of this.
Would a fine tuning be that, given there was an emergency in the future, and we have the ability to call for a special emergency meeting, we could institute whatever we wanted to as the governing body, see moving forward.
Under state law, to enforce it with a citation to court,
It'd be 2 weeks.
you got to do this.
Right, the reading.
So, again, but you define what you're enforcing in the emergency proclamation. This is just says, you know,
I mean, I know East Ridge did it, that they had the executive order and the civil
yeah,
emergency, if you will, in their order from Chris Dorsey.
yeah. This is a tool and nothing more, but I mean, if it offends your
I'm one of
libertarian
these,
sensitivities.
I think people should live their life and the less government interface with them. And I'm saying as a commissioner, but I enjoy my rights as a citizen as well. And I just don't know that I feel comfortable with.
Okay. Well, it was my idea because I
Yeah.
thought,
Now, we did pass the civil emergency declaration that the mayor and city manager, how is that different than this?
that declares an emergency and that says, don't do X and don't do Y. Without this, cite them to court.
So we have the governor who takes precedence
Yes.
over us.
Yes.
If there is a local disaster such as tornadoes in
Yeah.
Chattanooga, Hamilton County, and us, the mayor of Hamilton County is probably going to pass something or go along with the governor or whoever, right? For the most part.
Well, I mean, it could, yeah. I'm just saying, if you want to have something where you can enforce a local emergency declaration, that's what this is for. That's what,
Is it more of a preventive measure?
yeah, I mean, that's what it is. I mean, otherwise, you know, this doesn't happen right now because the governor's taking that away from it.
Yeah, right.
Commissioner White, you have some?
I'll yield to Commissioner Garfer and then
Oh,
I'll.
okay.
Just a couple, it just seems a little heavy-handed maybe not so much right now because the governor's taking it over. But I think common sense and the quality of our leadership, I really tend to think, I agree with Tim. Rights are our rights, and
Yeah.
When you start taking away people's rights for somebody else's, which
Can we develop some type of,
I don't like it.
outside of this Tennessee annotated code for our city? I mean,
Well, I mean, again, there's two pieces to this. And I understand what you're saying, and this came solely from me because the question came early on. If we pass an emergency declaration, what can we do to enforce it? And really, we had no way to enforce it, no way at all, because you didn't have anything like this. I mean, you could send the police over there and say close, but if somebody says no, there's not really a way to enforce that. And the governor took that away from us, so we didn't have to worry about it here. But I just thought, here's a little hole in what we can and can't do that can be filled by this. But I mean, I can understand, the tendency to think this may be hard or something like that. But again, you don't make it hard unless you put an emergency declaration down that says, don't do this. When you have an emergency declaration that says, don't do this, this gives you a tool to enforce it. If you have an emergency declaration that says, we urge you to stay off the streets, we encourage people not to turn on their lights after midnight, blah, 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 then you're alleviating it within that order. That's all I'm saying. And we got through this emergency without having this. So you may be right, Vice Mayor. It was just something that I thought if the city itself, and I've recommended this to my other ones too, y'all are the first ones that's come up to.
let me ask you this. So initially we had talked about an executive order, not a civil emergency.
Mhm.
An executive order we could put out there like the governor did
Yes,
under the mayor and city manager.
yes.
I mean, that could be emergency call meeting or,
No, you don't have to have a meeting to do that according to the law.
No, it's,
That's what we already did.
there's two statutory schemes. There's one that was this Title 38, which we've cited
Yeah.
here, and that basically says it's the city manager who declares an emergency. And it's got the limited, I think y'all both read the statute, it's the limited things, you close the gas stations and the gun shops and all that kind of stuff. Then there's a statutory scheme, and that's Title 38. There's a statutory scheme in Title 58, and it's more like declaring emergencies for,
58-8-104.
yeah, something like, yeah. And it's a different line of authority, but it's got to be renewed every 7 days. And so what we did is we had both the mayor while the mayor was gone, you acting as vice mayor did it, exercising that authority while the city manager exercised the Title 38 authority. So we had all the bases covered. And then eventually the governor came in and we just stuck with the governor.
So am I understanding that this can be done without the full commission voting it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Mayor.
I think the thing to say is that this is a strategy, and however you write the tactic is dependent upon the individual situation. You can be as strict or not as strict based upon what you put in your proclamation. But without this being put in, you have no enforcement authority.
Commissioner White?
Mayor, I think you just hit on something that I was going to point out was that this isn't once we approve this, it takes it out of our hands and puts that ability to be, the emergency to be declared by the city manager, who's an unelected city official. And I also have questioned the limitations that the TCA gives for it. The civil emergency being defined as a riot, unlawful assembly, natural disaster, man-made calamity, or destruction of property. COVID-19 doesn't fall into those realms. And then the other problem that I have with the way this was written, of when it talks about how to penalize the violators, it says anyone found shall be guilty rather than has be found to be committed a violation. And I don't like that verbiage there saying shall be guilty it seems that you're not giving someone the right to a court hearing and different things like that. So that verbiage threw me off as well. But as like Commissioner Garver said, and the Vice Mayor said, and you've hit on, I do not feel comfortable giving that kind of authority to one person. I wouldn't want that authority myself.
Again, it comes exclusively from me. It struck me during this emergency, that's what happened. And if y'all are uncomfortable with it, then it's your option not to adopt it. And if there's not a motion to approve it, Madam Mayor, then it dies for lack of motion.
Can we make a motion to kill it for the record?
Don't need to. Oh, okay.
It wouldn't be appropriate under Robert's rules, but if you want
Robert
to do
told
it,
you don't need it.
I think the record's clear that you're against it and the Vice Mayor is too, so.
Yeah, but we're only 2 of the 5.
Well, I mean, but there's not a motion from the rest of
No,
them.
I got you.
Any additional discussion?
I mean, I guess I get why, and I'm going to say this because I've never been an alcoholic, but you take alcohol away from a alcoholic, you have the risk to put them in DTs. You take away my right to buy a gun because of somebody else's potential of causing harm or right or something like that. I get pretty frustrated with that. So I am definitely opposed of it.
Well, hearing no motion or a second, it dies.
That's correct. That's the proper.
Okay, we'll go on then to our next item. We have a bid for Prospect Church Road Culvert Project. I can't believe it.
Amen. Amen.
After all of these years.
So, I do have good news. We received 3 bids. And I'm here tonight to present the lowest and best bid for $497,387. That was Wright Brothers Construction.
Oh, wow. Good.
Both other bids were much higher. And I have full faith in Wright Brothers to be able to handle the project. They're right here doing a $94 million project for TDOT, so they'll be able to get on it and get going quick.
So that includes the 2 culverts?
Yes.
Okay.
What's the projected start date once we approve the bid?
In the contract, they're supposed to mow, May 30th, June 1st. So into this month, they should mow, get started.
Awesome. Good job, Eric.
I move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the bid.
One question. We can still do that, right?
Yes, you can still do that.
So we got sidewalks on one side of that bridge, those bridge culverts?
So the sidewalk won't be installed, but there will be enough room to eventually put a sidewalk. Yes, there'll be a, what was it, 8-foot shoulder? 8-foot shoulder.
Let's do the sidewalk. I mean, we'll never get it if we
I
don't
think-
do it now.
Eric, you were planning on doing that after the fact, right?
Correct. We're looking at restructuring, redoing some curb and gutter later on
Okay.
down the road. But to do a short section of sidewalk, just where the bridge is and go on it, it wouldn't be right.
So they can get this completed before school begins again?
So in the contract, they're supposed to be done by July 31st.
Wow,
Good. Won't bother the school buses
very good.
if we
Good
have
job.
school next year.
I've heard rumor that they may move school starting earlier, but that's just a rumor, so.
And there's been rumors they may not start till December, depending on June and if there's another outbreak or not.
Okay,
I look forward to
So can I
that.
ask a question?
yes.
Sure.
Since Phil did. So let me ask the city manager, is this wise spending at this point, knowing what we're facing? I know it needs to be done, but $500,000?
Yes, it's in the current budget.
I know it's in the current, but is it wise spending?
In my opinion, yes, we need to get this project done. Those bridges are unsafe and they need to be replaced.
And we've been putting it
Terrible.
off for a long time due to finances having to go elsewhere. So I think it needs to go ahead and get done.
Anytime you can take out a bridge and put in a culvert, you're better off. And that's what this does.
And it's wider and everything.
Yes.
Straightening it out some too.
And this has been going on since before I was on the commission.
This has been going on since Jeff and I moved to Chattanooga. from Chattanooga to Collegedale in 1999.
So I just wanted, my, knowing our
Understand.
financial challenges maybe next year, I appreciate the city manager, his financial insight on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are we ready for a vote? Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Garver,
Yes,
Commissioner White,
Yay.
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Yay.
Mayor Lamb.
Yay. Our next item is the emergency spending approval. And this is our city manager will,
I'm pleased to report that at no time did I have to consult with the mayor for anything over $10,000 to do emergency purchases, so that's good news. We do have some minor things for Andrew to read into the actual minutes. Those are well below $10,000, and normally those are things that I would approve on a routine basis, but our policy does say that if there's anything that we need emergency spending wise, we read it into the next minute. So I do not have anything to request approval of relative to earning over $10,000. To refresh your memory, the policy says that if there is an emergency declared, I am to consult with the mayor. If we agree, then we do it and then bring it immediately to you to the next meeting. I have nothing to report relative to that. However, the policy also says that if there are any spending items that occurred, I mean, we're not talking about sacks of biscuits or something, we're talking about things that we bought, then we read that into the minutes, which is what Andrew has right there. Other things are still being compiled. At this point, we don't have any other information, but we do have some tonight. So Andrew, if you'll read that in so the commission can hear it.
At our city hall building, $540 were spent for setting one of our gas package units back on the rooftop that was blown off. As a result of the unit getting blown off, it caused damage to our roof, which that repair was $330. The library, we had spent for decking screws and torque bits, $52.97. Tarps, $111.97. $103.91 for lumber to help hold the tarps down. Ceiling tile for the library, $622.08. Those were the expenses that have been incurred. Regarding the library, I've gotten estimates for.
Andrew, can we first pause?
Yes.
And see if the commissioners have any issue with that, see if they have any questions.
What about the clock tower out here? Is that part of your report?
Nothing has been brought to my attention as far as damage done to the clock tower unless,
It was damaged.
I haven't noticed it.
did that come out of Collegedale Tomorrow
That's
Foundation?
news to me. I didn't know.
yeah, I wasn't aware of that. An adjuster.
There was a piece missing off if you're going westbound.
Okay.
I don't know, Eric, did you?
I honestly haven't noticed, I haven't looked at the clock tower.
Okay.
No,
We'll have to check that out because I don't think we know about that.
No.
We've been looking at everything else.
Is it
I missed it.
roofing?
I think it's a roofing piece of it. And whatever was on top of it, was there a weather vane or
There was a
something?
weather vane.
We'll have to check that out, Andrew, because none of us have had any discussions relative to the clock tower.
No, I wasn't aware of that either.
Could that
Okay, so-
possibly be on Mr. Bartu's estimate when he turned in because the damage that was done to the commons? Do you think maybe he included it in his?
I'll check with him.
We don't know the answer to that question, but we'll check.
The commons is though covered under the different insurance, right?
Yes, we insure the commons, so we own the facility. So they're getting bids as well and starting to work up stuff to be able to come back and approve when we need to as well. Any questions on what Andrew read into the minutes?
Sounds good.
Okay, Andrew, proceed with your next item, please.
Okay. So as most everybody is aware, the library needs to be re-roofed because of the extensiveness and the damage caused by the high winds and tornadic activity.
You can do the whole thing?
Yes,
The whole
Good.
roof,
So the match color.
yes.
Very good.
the library.
And I've got bids back, or estimates back rather, that range from $175,000 and below, with the low bid being at $107,124. And that was Tri-State Roofing. And that would be my recommendation for approval for that estimate.
Yeah, will insurance cover that?
We think that it'll cover most of it. If not, we still need to do it anyway. We haven't gotten a firm commitment from the adjuster yet on that. but we hope that he will cover most, if not all of it.
Isn't there something that's going to include the structural damage too? How about the contents? That's got,
We're
We're
still
still
working on
working
that.
with the adjuster on that.
All of this has been rather overwhelming,
Yeah.
among other stuff.
So the pool still carries our insurance?
Sir,
The pool is where our insurance is covered?
it's now called PEP, Public Entity
Oh.
Partners. That's correct.
Okay,
Yes.
hadn't heard that one. Thank you. Are you looking for a motion on this one bid or
However
tonight?
y'all would like me to do it, if you want to take one item at a time, I have two other
It needs
items.
to
that I
be one
need
item at a
approval.
time,
I
please.
move to approve the library roof.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion on the roof? Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
I just have one question. Where does this funding come from currently?
We'll have to pay it out of cash till we get reimbursed.
Okay.
We hope that the insurance company will reimburse if most, if not all of it.
Did you have a question too?
No.
Commissioner Garber?
I didn't say anything.
Okay,
No.
Let me
I'm
add
sorry.
something to that. Maybe
Okay.
we can get lucky and by the time we do it, they'll give us a check and we won't even have to put it out of our money.
That's what I was hoping for.
But
I was
if
just curious
not,
time
we're not
frame.
going to wait on them to give us a check because we got to
can't.
get this thing
No,
secured.
exactly. Just was curious.
We can't wait.
There's a whole-
roll call.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Garver,
Yes,
Commissioner White,
Yay.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Yay.
Mayor Lamb.
Yay.
All right, thank you.
Next item?
Next item, in order to maximize the city's dollars and be good stewards of our resources, I'm breaking this up into components. The library roof is one component. The insulation underneath the roof that was damaged, to remove and replace that is a second component. I've got two bids on that. One was $4,650. The other one was $2,496, which I recommend the $2,496 for approval.
So that's obviously within my spending limit, but I wanted him to bring it to you guys because it's part of the tornado damage.
I move to approve.
second.
Any further discussion or question?
That's all part of the library issue?
Yes.
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Garver,
Yes,
Commissioner White,
Yay.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Yay.
Mayor Lamb.
Yay.
Thank you. Last but not least is Imagination Station Pavilion Bathroom Building. It will need to be replaced. There is extensive damage enough to justify replacement of the shingles on that roof. And I've got two bids back on that.
Is that the whole roof? The
Yes,
whole roof.
that's correct.
Andrew, you said the building would need to be replaced. You're talking about the roof, correct?
the
Oh,
shingle.
yes, the roof, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Said roof, I do apologize, not the whole building, but just the roof. That's
And
correct.
four.
Thank you for clarification.
We get outhouses.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's been rather overwhelming.
Absolutely. But we got two bids back on that. One was at $12,335 and the other one was at $11,879. And I recommend approval for $11,879, the low bid.
Who was that with?
Tri-State Roofing, same contractor that got low bid on the library roof.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Any
Let's go home.
further discussions or questions? Don't want to rush you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Garver,
Yes,
Commissioner White,
Yay.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Yay.
Mayor Lamb.
Yay.
Thank you.
Hey, Andrew, can I ask a question for you?
Absolutely.
So what about the computers and stuff over at the library? Is that our property that was
Yes,
damaged?
it is ours. It's only the library staff that we outsource, but the contents and the library itself is owned by the city. I think a majority of the computers were salvageable. There might have been one or two that might need replacement, but Tom looked at most of them and surprising, most of them are in good shape. So that was good.
Good.
That's why I was asking about the content.
We do have some damage to contents. So how we're going to handle that, the number $10,000-ish, a little bit over, strikes me from memory of the new books that were damaged. And so LSS has a line item budget to purchase books, so we're going to work with them. We've also had people talk to us about if they wanted to contribute to that. We've advised them to give money to the Friends of the Library, which is a 501c3 specifically designed to help the library purchase and do things. And then if not, if any monies that were to come in specifically for that does not make them whole, then I've asked them to get back with us and we'll figure out what we need to do to make them whole and get them back up to speed. I believe we may have had one computer that had water damage that's not repairable. Tom is still working through all of those systems and making sure they're okay. It leaked, it fell down right on top of the computers of all places. Go figure. Murphy's Law.
And the carpet's fine and.
Yeah, they're cleaning it and taking care of it and all the above. Yeah.
This carpet's
So
amazing.
that's how we're handling that right now. So there's a lot of questions still, but we're working through it piece by piece.
And just for the record, I'm still waiting on like the interior putback cost of replacement of ceiling tiles and things of that nature, but hadn't got bids back yet from that. So I'm still waiting on that.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Eric, I know that you would need to come up and do a trailer purchase approval, but when you do that, would you also kind of cover with the commission an overshot of some of the work that you've done, such as, we closed the road Sunday to do a lot of that. Just kind of give them an overview of the process that we're going. We're not done yet, but give them an idea of what all's going on.
Sure. So obviously, most of you know, since the start of the tornado, we've been picking up brush nonstop. We're still picking up brush. We will probably be picking up brush for at least the next 3 or 4 weeks. We've made 4 trips through Wellesley and Downing Green off of Bill Reed. We'll pick up everything in the subdivision. 2 days later, it'll all be piled right back out there again. I have 100% satisfaction that it's not people bringing it into the city. That's just how much tree is out there and they can only cut so much at a certain time. We have made it all the way around the city twice now. We're still allowing people to work over if they want to. We're not making anyone work over. So far, we've still been able to have full crews to be able to work over. It's working out quite well.
Working over is defined as we're going to have some overtime hits based upon all this, but we kind of expected that.
Yeah. This Sunday, we actually had a pretty big operation. We brought in some outside contractors to help with trucking to be able to get the debris hauled out. We closed down Ooltewah-Ringgold Road at Ooltewah Middle School and at the at-grade crossing at Old Town Ooltewah for about 4.5 hours and then shifted all the way down to Jack Cade. We did a press release the night before, and actually while we were setting up the cones and signs the night before, we had several people stop and say, hey, I thought this was tomorrow. So it actually worked. A lot of people knew about it. We didn't have much traffic issues because of it. And we hauled about 100 truckloads Saturday in about 13 hours. So we got a lot done.
They started at 5 a.m. roughly and stopped at about 7 something.
So
Huge
are we
problem.
going to be filing some of this overtime with FEMA and?
Remains to be seen, but probably not. It just depends on how the process goes. We'll look at that. But in our experience from doing this before, it's not a pretty picture.
Yeah.
We talked about that many times. It is almost cheaper for us to eat it ourselves because we won't see the money for years. If that. We're in a situation where, let me see if I can make sense out of this for myself and share it with y'all. We're in a situation where we had a lot of damage, but we didn't have a lot of destruction. There's the distinct difference between the two. Destruction would be massive levels of, the word just left me. Debris is the word. Massive levels of debris. Where you were cutting wood the other day, that's debris. And that's massive destruction. What we have is a lot of trees down and not a massive amount of debris and destruction. So that's funded differently in the FEMA world. FEMA also steps in and a lot of people are not insured. We are insured with a lot of our buildings and the things that we do. So the routine day-to-day and picking up of what we're doing, some of those costs we're going to have to eat anyway. So it remains to be seen.
I remember the
Will be the answer.
paperwork after the last one was crazy.
The amount of manpower and hours spent putting in for reimbursal for them to lose it repeatedly ask for it, and to work through that is difficult at best to describe. And it's not good. It's just how it is. It's a fact. At a certain point, you remember I walk in and tell you that to do a project with TDOT, it needs to kind of be over $500,000 or we're almost wasting our time money-wise and working with the process. That figure doesn't apply here, but it's the same thing as you're trying to work through it. So if we had massive levels of destruction and debris in the city, we probably would need to do that, but that is not what we're facing. So based upon that, in many scenarios, it's going to be cheaper for us to eat the cost and move on.
Well, I think the Public Works has done a great job
They have.
patrolling, picking up debris and stuff. Police department, and I feel good about our city, so.
I've
Thank-
received a lot of positive comments about how the city has handled this whole situation.
From top to bottom, core functions, the staff's been on top of it. Those that are not serving in core functions have adapted to other functions. We'll get some more reports on that later on. But the staff has done an incredible job with their respective areas of staying on top of all this. We're very proud of them and grateful for them. Thank you, Vice Mayor, for bringing that up. Eric, and I talked today, he needs to get approval for a used trailer. We don't have to bid used equipment. We don't have to bid new equipment, but it is over $10,000, so we need commission approval. So go ahead, Eric.
So I had budgeted to purchase a trailer and sewer for hauling equipment, materials, so on and so forth. And I've been looking at getting pricing, and while I was talking to one trailer company, they actually had the next size up available that was gently used. Literally, the guy bought it, used it for like a week, and decided he wanted a lighter duty trailer, brought it back. And so we're getting the next size up for less than what we were looking at spending before, about just under $13,000.
And it is within budget. So good find.
Good deal.
Any comments or questions for Public Works?
You need a motion on that?
I make a motion next to.
Good job, Eric. Appreciate you,
I'll
buddy.
second.
Can we have a motion and a second for this trailer bid? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Garver,
Yes.
Commissioner White,
Yay.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Yay.
Mayor Lamb.
Yay.
Last but not least, it's going to take us a while to get the city back to normal, but we're literally working at it every day. This weekend, the staff worked at it as well, and so we will get it back together as soon as we can. We still have probably some repairs that we'll be seeking funding approval for the sewer pump station roof. Obviously, there's damage back at the commons as we work through with the adjusters. Everybody else from public entity partners, there's still a lot of nitpicking things that have to be gone through, but slowly but surely we'll get it done.
You know, I was amazed at the new pavilions on the boardwalk, 8x8 posts fractured, but the roof itself stayed together. And, you know, it's almost like you could just pick it up and put it back
And
up.
just set it down.
Yeah.
I mean, just like it just
It's
set it
amazing
down.
what the wind can do.
Yeah, you know where Lloyd's Point is back here on the Veterans Park, as you look back behind the flags and stuff, you know, you had a sewer project going that we're in the middle of that on, and then you had the trees come down, and we're dealing with T-deck on that, et cetera. And then, you know, you can't make this up. It's just a disaster on top of a disaster on top of a disaster. When you add in the Corona stuff, the routine projects that we're doing, and then pile a tornado in on top of it. And, you know, I'm from emergency services background, so I learned to never challenge worse. It could always be worse, but we have had one hit after another, and we've been able to get in and tackle it little bit by little bit. So as we get this fixed, we'll get this fixed, we'll get that fixed. It's literally step on just about every single thing. A lot of it's existing projects, and we're trying to get our normal projects completed on top of all the other damage that we're dealing with. So, but we'll get there. It's going
It
to
just
take a while.
takes time. It takes
It's
time.
going to take some time. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
I have a question while we're talking about some of these issues coming up. Have we opened up the parks yet? The dog park and
yet.
Imagination Station and so
The
forth?
playgrounds and parks, not yet.
Okay, because I've been getting some phone calls about when they would do that. People are complaining that the parking areas, they can't get into the parking area over by Thatcher Switch in order to walk on the greenway. And I keep telling them that parking area is also for the playground, which I thought was
And the
still
pavilions.
closed. And that the greenway was more for a travel area between the apartments and the university. So,
We'll get there,
okay.
little bit by little bit.
I think homeschooling is getting to some people.
I'm sorry?
I think some children having to be taught at home
Yes.
is getting to some people that are having to do it, because I've gotten a lot of calls from parents, like, can you meet somewhere? No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mayor, there's something else I'd like to do. I was going to cover some of this later, probably still will, but as you know, this thing kind of shut down our Parks and Recs department because they had to stop programming. And Tracy and Andy have stepped up and have been very, very cooperative, probably more than I would ever hope for them to, because this is completely out of their wheelhouse. But in order to protect our workforce, we started our own daycare from the standpoint of caring for the staff's children to keep the staff at work. I don't know if daycare is probably a bad choice of words, probably child care assistance would be the more appropriate term. But they have done this day in and day out and have done a stellar job. And we have that to continue till May 29, which is Friday, which is a little bit past the school year. And then by then, we need to pull them back into their normal jobs and routine so they can begin effectively doing their programming for the summer, because then things will be starting to open up. But other than folks doing a great job, Tracy and Andy, probably more than anybody, have had a role change in what they do on a normal basis. And I just can't commend them enough for being able and being willing to do that, being cooperative, because that has been enormously helpful, even if it's just for 2 or 3 employees, to keep our staff at work. One of our employees that benefited from that is one of our finance people, and that's our primary core function, past PD and past public works. So a shout out to them to thank you is really not enough, but it needs to be said that we're very grateful for them doing what they did. And that's just pure teamwork. And they're at the top of the chart on that, so we're grateful.
It's my understanding that we have been able to keep all of our city employees working.
Yes.
We haven't had to put any on leave.
No.
That's good.
Into the Parks and Rec, I know that they've done some trivia stuff on Facebook, so
It's been fun.
it's been kind of interesting.
I've learned a few things.
So Tracy, are you back here? I think?
Yeah,
Yes, she
she's
is.
back there.
Well done.
I have had a concern about, they say the virus is the individuals that are most susceptible to the virus is our elderly population. I have tried to get information from the health department about our nursing home, our retirement center over here, and they will tell me nothing. So I asked them why, when they put out their map, they did not include the zip code 315 on it. So she said she would check on it, and she called me back and said, it is because it is a post office box only, they cannot include that. And that doesn't make sense to me, because our elderly population, many of them in Collegedale, go to that post office to get their mail every day. And they're still not including that in their record, on their map, or in their reporting.
Welcome back to the nut we've been able to crack for years.
And so I said, well, how do we know that the people who are working over at Life Care or up at Greenbrier Cove area, if they're coming into our stores, like the Dollar Tree, they come in and buy things all the time for their clients. How do we know they're not bringing something in because they won't be wearing masks or anything when they come to the stores? And it's strange that I would bring up masks tonight because none of us have except a couple of people here. I did bring mine, I just don't have it on. It really concerns me that we may have an outbreak of it here in our very center, and we don't know anything about it until it gets to be so large a number that they will decide to report it like they did the Athens Life Care Center. And I'm just expressing my concern there because between Friday and when they had their news conference today, there's been 19 new cases in Hamilton County. I
Well, the
mean,
Athens has really grown.
in Athens, they've had 4 deaths now in theirs as of
And 90
today,
people infected.
and 90-some persons.
You know, I thought the nursing home still kept people out. It's only the workers going in the food services and supplies and
Right.
stuff like that.
Well, the workers are testing positive.
Yeah, that's it. So families
Not
are
the visitors,
out,
it's the
but
workers.
it's the workers. And you're right, we'll hear about it on the news when it hits 1 or 2 deaths here locally, so
Yeah.
unfortunate.
I had one question about the freedom celebration. Are we going to have our 4th of July freedom celebration?
As of right now, it's full speed ahead as far as administration is concerned. We're planning on that.
Okay.
I hope,
July 2.
I hope it's premature to make a,
Well, I think it's premature, but I keep getting phone calls. Are we going to be able to have the
plan yes to hear
fireworks?
otherwise.
You know, we're at a group of 10.
Yeah.
And then churches are different, you know, they're held to a different standard, which I totally agree with, but, you know, for most populations, it's very limited. I had the same question to ask tonight about it, but I've got several questions as well.
And then I have one about an ordinance, and this is for Andrew. Do we have an ordinance that indicates how long you can keep things in your front yard for sale?
Not to my knowledge.
What's for sale?
Well, at 4447 University Drive, for the last 6 or 8 months, there's been an old van sitting out in their yard for sale. The grass has not been cut, and it place just looks trashy. And
What's the
I,
address on that?
4447 University Drive.
I'll be happy to go by and take a look at it.
So I thought surely we would have a
So it was-
ordinance about old cars sitting around for sale.
Well, I think it's cars that will not start or move that,
Inoperable vehicles.
yeah, we can do
Okay.
something about.
Okay.
That's what it is.
That's my list.
Wow, you covered everything.
I usually have nothing.
We're gonna skip you.
See, you have to let me out of the house, so I quit thinking. Commissioner White?
Did we go through all the city administrative stuff? I know we jumped around.
Yes.
Okay, you said you had some other things to cover, so I just want to make sure you didn't miss anything.
I'd let him talk if he wanted to.
When will we get copies of the budget? I know the workshop's at the end of the month,
May 18th,
May 18th.
put an email out about that.
Okay, awesome.
That's the commission meeting before the workshop.
Okay, sounds good. And then, let's see. Do we have a timeline for opening the parks yet? I know you
But I
said
know
that's
I'm waiting on the governor, I believe. We're all under the governor's wing on this.
So I know Chattanooga opened Coolidge Park back up and the walking bridge and things like that. So I didn't know if we had the ability to open our parks.
Do you want the parks open?
I'm just asking a question, but it's,
Eric, is everything
So
up to
we have
date?
2 things. There's one piece of equipment that was damaged that I'm still trying to get some pricing on to get fixed. And then we also have to put mulch back in the Imagination Station that flooded out due to the tornado. So we've been playing games with the rain and tree pickup to try and get to where I can get enough people gathered up to do it and knock it out in a day and a half or so. Once that's together, we just had 3 more trees that got in worse shape over the last windstorm we had last night that we're actually going to be shutting down a couple sections of the greenway tomorrow to be able to get those trees down.
They may
Once
come
the
down.
trees and everything
They may
are
come
saved
down
up,
tonight.
Guys come up from the parks, and I'm fine with it, but right now, Imagination Station needs to stay closed due to repair work. And the greenway, I would not want to put out, hey, all once bulletin, we're open, because we're still having to close certain areas to get to the trees.
So parks and playgrounds are not the same.
right, no, I agree. Yeah, playgrounds
So I don't
definitely.
believe that the county or the playgrounds have actually been opened up,
I'd
potentially
leave it
parks.
closed.
Well,
but
my
not
question is on,
playgrounds.
when we close them, we close the commons as well. And I know May 10, they're opening up So I'm just curious.
It's not a park.
Okay,
It's not a park.
I'm just curious. I mean, just, it
And
was
that's
in
a
there.
food market,
Yeah.
not selling.
It's actually a
jewelry.
restricted vendor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
restricted.
essential for that Mother's Day.
It's food related. Even the food trucks will be take it and go. You can't stay and eat.
Yeah.
If you buy food from the food trucks.
Just trying to see if we had a phased plan, like some.
I'm for keeping the playgrounds closed right now, to be honest with you. I mean, let Eric, because he has to clean them, let him do his job that he needs to.
I believe the market on the 10th, all the vendors are going to be outside.
Yeah.
Not inside, appropriately socially distanced and spaced. If you can go inside a grocery store and buy food, why can't you go outside and buy food?
Yeah.
I mean, something to think about.
Right. Better food outside.
Well, you know.
Maybe, maybe.
That's all I have for tonight.
Okay. Commissioner Garber?
I just, lots of gratitude for our city manager and his staff. I mean, it's been a nightmare. And the only complaint I've heard, literally, and I don't look for complaints, but they find me, is about the flags in the Veterans Park. And I've got a complete set of 52 flags in the back of my truck. And I'm gonna call Eric, we've been talking about it. And as soon as we can get nice enough weather to get the old veterans out there with us to help us make it happen. But you know, a picture came across, was sent to me, and I passed it on to some people about that flag, a huge thunder cloud right behind it, everything ripped up and everything. And they did one of the nicest little paragraphs about how that warmed their spirit about the power of that flag and what it's been through for us and how they survived things. And it just, you know, a torn flag bothers me a little bit, but it says more positive to me than it does negative. And we got to take care of the flags. The state flags are ridiculous out there. That tornado was just devastating, but not one thing was hurt other than that. Just the cloth was all that was hurt. And we got a whole set ready to go, but y'all have done a great job, your staff. Make a phone call, man, and they're always willing to help. People can't believe how they've responded to things around. So thank you, all of you.
That was a nice piece about the flag.
Yeah,
Mhm.
very, very, very nice.
I was going to make a suggestion. I don't know if you've done this or not. And of course, schools are being closed. Seniors are, all high schools, you have to do what we call community service. And they're trying to find things in order because they're still it's still mandated that they have to do community service through all this, at least 22 hours in order to graduate to get their diploma. Ottawa, I know they would get kids up from the ROTC program for the athletic department. Because I know when my son came out and put up flags many times. Matter of fact, the first time they were put up, he was the one that was flying in the air because it carried him up.
That's
But-
the one thing they have help with
Yeah.
that time.
So that might be something if you need some help with some of that. I know they can't shimmy up a pole, but maybe unfolding, pulling up or something. And that would help them get their community service hours in.
We'll think about that. It's kind of a challenge,
Yeah.
but thank you.
I'm thinking more of the older ones, like the
Yeah.
juniors and the seniors, most of them are like 6 foot tall.
Thanks.
Anything else?
Okay.
Commissioner Baker?
Well, everything has been already, by the time it comes to me, I feel like I'm just saying ditto to everything because most of everything I was thinking about, y'all have already mentioned, and I don't want to be redundant. But I am grateful to Tracy. I was going to say that because I've been over here. I had the privilege of coming over and working with them. Very little, because it didn't take long for them to tell me, we don't need you anymore. Because I had to go back to work. But it's a challenge, and I do want to commend them because not only did they take care of the children, but because of their educational needs. They set up and helped them with their homeschooling and things like that for the digital learning, which was very, very difficult for kids to do. And to maintain that, getting the work in and working with teachers and parents and all that. It's been a great challenge. We've learned a lot of things. And so I commend you, and I thank her very much, and for everyone that was involved in helping that, and Eric and all. I can't say enough about our city. I'm very proud of them.
I'm glad we were able to rescue you out of your subdivision.
Pardon?
I'm glad we were able to rescue you out of your subdivision.
I think they were glad to have me rescued out of my subdivision. But you know what? I got to meet my neighbors that I've never met before. We pulled together, we hauled generators in, you know. I was on my phone aggravating people. We need some help over here. And everybody came, you know. I know y'all will probably get tired of hearing from me. Because, you know, we had people
No.
back there that were stranded that had to have their oxygen, they had to get to dialysis, and we were stuck there. We were,
That low hanging, big electrical wire.
yes.
Those lines were out of our league. When you
Yep.
have neutrals and big lines like that laying down, we can't touch that. We can't work around that. That's,
And we had a gentleman that let us, he has an extra lot, he bought the lot next to him, he let us use that as a roadway. Once, another gentleman who owns a equipment company called his people, and they came in and worked from Pine Street, and we worked from this side. Those gentlemen out there worked all night, practically. They worked until dark and came back the next day, cutting logs and everything to help us to get out. It was about 5 or 6 days we were without electricity and stuff.
And I thought it was bad because I was out 3 days.
We finally got it back, most of us. I found out we were on 3 grids, so, but it took about 9 days to get everybody on. I got on Thursday night, but it kept going in and out, but at least we got on. So we were from Sunday to Thursday, and then some didn't get on until Sunday or Monday of the following week. Okay. But we just pull together, and that's what a community does.
Vice Mayor?
So I complimented Eric's team for being out and about, seen them multiple times through my neighborhood and stuff. You know, 2:00 so this is funny, 2:00, the night of the tornado or the next morning. Go to the door. Sheila Strange, is she Corporal? Corporal Strange was knocking on the door because there's trees down around the house next to me and stuff. She just wanted to make sure that we were okay, of course, and I appreciated it. I was awake anyway. I was listening to what the fire department was doing around, you know, the impacted areas and stuff, but I know your guys were out and about. You know, they probably weren't sitting hidden someplace. They were probably out on the road someplace, so for those guys, you know, we appreciate everything they did.
they did wellness checks and road checks all over the city repeatedly.
Okay, my door didn't get knocked on.
You had a big wire.
But no, but they did. Somebody came through the woods or somewhere, and they were knocking on people's in my neighborhood.
It
I
worked.
think they probably saw me out front.
A lot of friends and
Flashlight or
neighbors
something.
did that
Yeah.
exact thing. So.
So that's what we were doing, but they didn't. And several of the neighbors told me that because that someone had hit their door, knocking them and checking on them and all. So
So it-
really appreciative.
So it's just a team
Yeah.
effort, you know,
Absolutely.
from city administration to public works to police department. We
Yes.
appreciate it.
Well, you know, it brings the community together. You forget all your biases, you forget all your politics, you forget everything. You're thinking survival and your other mankind, you know? And so I think that it helps us to unify, it helps us to maybe bring ourselves on our knees a little bit. You remember, thank the good Lord, but that we are human and we do belong all together. We work together despite our differences.
Well, Ethan and I were up here about 2:30,
Yeah.
and
Midnight till
I
2.
kept saying, has anybody heard from Tim? Has anybody heard from Ted? And I kept calling Ted and didn't get an answer,
Had no service, but I made it into City Hall.
but he
Our
really.
service was really bad.
Mhm.
I kept getting the same text from Eric 300 times because it couldn't go through. But
Well, I didn't get anything.
Pump station roof, it got blown off about 35 times.
300. But, you know, we made it in, of course, and things went well. It was a long night.
It was.
I didn't have anything, no service whatsoever. And my husband appreciated that, I think, the quietness. But he,
I'm grateful that the commission many years ago let us get a generator for City
yeah.
Hall. That paid off, once again, time and time again, pays off handsomely when us having emergency generation here for administration and especially PD to function as the command post and headquarters, all the above. So thank you again for that.
Anything else? If not, do I hear a motion for adjournment?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
We're adjourned.
Take care, Ethan.
Be
Stay
safe.
well, buddy. Yes, sir. Good to see you, man.
Don't get sick.
we haven't.
I know.